Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. Rain lashed against the wide kitchen windows of their two-story home in Portland, Oregon. Nathan Wells, 35, leaned on the counter, still shirtless, sipping lukewarm coffee that tasted like betrayal. Across the marble island stood his wife of 8 years, Camille, cool, poised, dressed like she was about to host a TED Talk, not hand her husband divorce papers. She didn't meet his eyes. Instead, she focused on the espresso machine, like it was the most pressing thing in the room. The machine hissed, steam coiling in the air. Nathan's gaze dropped to the envelope she'd placed on the countertop, crisp, ivory white, untouched. "Sign it," Camille said calmly, like she was confirming a dentist appointment. Her voice didn't carry anger. It carried something worse, finality, clinical detachment, like he was a transaction being closed out. Nathan didn't reach for the envelope. He didn't speak. He just watched as Camille stirred cinnamon into her coffee with her left hand. Bare now. The wedding ring that had once been a symbol of their promises was gone. Only last night, they'd lain in the same bed. She'd curled against him like it was still safe, like she hadn't planned this for months. He remembered the scent of her skin, the brush of her thigh, the small whispers she'd given before falling asleep. "I love how steady you are," she'd said that while knowing she was about to gut him. The kitchen lights buzzed overhead. "You'll need to leave today," she added, her tone as neutral as the weather report. Nathan blinked. The house, the one he remodeled with his own hands. The floors, the lighting, the library with her favorite built-in shelves. He'd helped her climb, supported her marketing agency with his architecture firm paycheck during the early years, built her website, coded her brand messaging. And now, apparently, he was no longer part of the narrative. He didn't argue, just walked to the hallway closet, pulled down his travel duffel from the shelf. Camille followed, voice now sharper. "You're not taking anything from here." He unzipped the bag. "You already did." She flinched. It was the only break in her armor. A moment later, the front door opened. 2 tall men stepped in. Her brothers, Brandon and Clark. Wealthy, grinning, both with eyes that hadn't truly looked at Nathan in years. "We don't want trouble," Clark said, but his hands flexed like trouble was welcome. Nathan zipped his bag calmly. "Then stay out of the way." When he turned to leave, Camille blocked his path. She grabbed his wrist, tight. "I said nothing from this house." He didn't yank away. But when Brandon took him by the shoulders and tried to force him out, Nathan allowed it. He let them drag him across the wooden floor and down the concrete steps. Even when his knees smashed on the corner. No screaming, no threats, just one line, spoken with eerie calm as they shut the door on him. "You'll regret this. And not because I'll hurt you, but because I watched everything." He limped toward his car parked 2 blocks down. It wasn't until he sat in the driver's seat that the tremble hit. Not rage, not tears, just clarity. Nathan opened his phone and logged into their shared cloud account. Photos, receipts, sync devices. Camille had always underestimated him. She didn't change the passwords. She assumed he would disappear quietly. But Nathan wasn't going to disappear. He was going to become unforgettable. He found what he needed within an hour. Photos, receipts, video clips, text logs. Most people delete what they're ashamed of. Camille had organized hers like a personal scrapbook of infidelity. The man in the photos was older, lean, graying at the temples. Nathan recognized him. Derek Vaughn, a married investment banker. He'd attended Camille's book launch 6 months ago. Same hotel. Every Thursday, Nathan stared at a restaurant bill. $4.30 at a wine bar she'd claimed she'd visited with clients. Then a prenatal massage receipt. Wait, prenatal? His hands shook now. Not from heartbreak, but realization. Camille had told him she'd miscarried 3 months ago. Said she was 2 months along. Cried in his arms. Let him comfort her. But this receipt. It was dated 8 months ago. The baby wasn't his. He quietly closed the browser. No anger. Just steps. One by one. He reached into his toiletries bag. Her spare toothbrush was still there. The one she used before she threw him out. That would do. He placed it into a Ziploc, sealed it, and labeled it with precision. Then ordered a discreet paternity test online. He smiled. Let the storm begin. The test results came on a Friday morning, just as the overcast skies of Portland threatened rain again. Nathan sat in his temporary apartment. 2 bedrooms. Modest furniture. Clean windows facing a gray skyline. The email alert blinked on his laptop screen. The lab had expedited the test as requested. Inside the PDF, a name. Derek Vaughn, 99.99% paternal match. The child Camille claimed was Nathan's had never been his. She planned the lie, played the part, and wept into his chest with the same lips that had kissed another man, just hours before. Nathan didn't cry. He read the report twice, then calmly printed it. He folded it once, just like the envelope she'd handed him the day she cut him loose, and slipped it into a plain beige envelope. No note, no return address, just her name, neatly printed on the front. Camille Vaughn Wells. He mailed it to her office, not their home. A storm needs an audience. That night, she called him 3 times. He didn't answer. The 4th call was followed by a single message. "We need to talk." Nathan replied 1 minute later. "No, we don't." And with that, the silence became her prison. For days, Nathan stayed quiet, but not still. He began combing through old emails, financial records, legal documents, anything Camille might have overlooked. That's when he stumbled across something odd, buried in a folder labeled Archives. Estate planning. He saw it. 3 months before her mother's death, Camille had transferred several high-value trust accounts, temporarily, into Nathan's name. She did it for tax reasons, she'd claimed. "Safer in your name, sweetheart," she'd whispered over wine. "Just until my mother's lawyers clear probate." Only, her mother had passed 8 months ago, and Camille never reversed those transfers. Legally, the accounts still belonged to Nathan. Combined value, $4.6 million. Nathan leaned back in his chair. All this time, she thought she was playing chess. But she hadn't realized he'd already taken her queen off the board before she made her first move. He met with one of the most formidable estate attorneys in Oregon, Eleanor Grant. Sharp eyes, colder smile, no patience for liars. When he presented the documentation, she said 5 words. "Do you want to clean?" "Yes," Nathan replied. Quiet, final, and by the book. They worked fast. Camille's lawyers contested within days, accused him of fraud, manipulation, betrayal. But Nathan had the paper trail, notarized transfers, time-stamped files. It was all too tidy for them to undo. And he hadn't even played his final card. Not yet. Nathan remembered something Eleanor had said in their second meeting. Revenge isn't justice, but sometimes it comes close enough. He nodded. He understood that now. 3 weeks later, Nathan prepared a second envelope. Inside it, a photocopy of the trust transfer paperwork and a timestamp of when Camille had signed it. 6 months before her affair even began. He also included a full-color photo, one of the many he'd found in the cloud. Camille, laughing, her hand on Derek's chest, her wedding ring glinting in the sunlight like a joke. At the bottom of the photo, he'd written a single sentence in blue ink. "You should have been more careful." He sent it by courier. Signature required. That night, Camille tried to call again. Then Brandon, her brother. Then Clark. All 3 calls ignored. That weekend, her legal team folded. Camille lost the trust money, half of what her mother had left her. She tried to reclaim in court, screamed about betrayal, manipulation, emotional coercion. But every move she made just tightened the noose around her own credibility. The tabloids picked up whispers. Photos leaked. Derek's wife filed for divorce. Camille's clients began backing out. Her once polished agency was now a PR nightmare. And Nathan? He bought a small condo overlooking the Columbia River. Nothing extravagant. Just clean windows, a workspace with warm light, and quiet. Lots of quiet. The kind of silence that made liars sweat. He started freelancing again, designing homes, restoring old buildings. Work that made his hands tired and his heart calm. People asked how he was doing. He smiled and said, "I'm just getting started." 2 weeks passed. Camille hadn't posted on Instagram in 9 days. For someone who used to share filtered flat whites and motivational captions daily, her silence screamed louder than any caption. Nathan watched her unravel from afar. He didn't need to stalk her in person. The internet did the job for him. Reddit threads, whisper apps, anonymous comments. The photo he had mailed, of her laughing beside Derek with her wedding ring still on, somehow found its way online. He hadn't leaked it. Someone else did. Maybe Derek's assistant. Maybe one of her disgruntled employees. Maybe Karma herself. Either way, Camille was no longer Portland's powerhouse marketer or the queen of clean branding. She was the woman who lied to her husband, faked a miscarriage, and was named as correspondent in a high-profile divorce. Nathan could have stopped there, but he didn't. Because some betrayals aren't just personal. They're surgical. They cut deep. Through trust. Through dignity. Through identity. Camille hadn't just cheated. She'd used him. Lied in his arms. Weaponized intimacy. And watched him bleed without blinking. So he kept going. Not with fire. But with light. Nathan had access to hundreds of cloud files Camille never scrubbed. Receipts. Schedules. An entire calendar that detailed her Thursday trysts at the Armitage Hotel. Booked under fake names. Often charged her a company's card. That was enough for the IRS. Nathan made an anonymous tip. He included 3 documents. 2 weeks later, Camille's company was under audit. 3 clients dropped. Then 5. Her assistant quit. And her apology video on YouTube, which she posted in soft lighting with watery eyes and in, I was going through a hard time script, was flooded with dislikes and stitch videos dissecting every lie. Still, Nathan hadn't spoken to her once. But then she broke the silence. He was walking to his car when he saw her. Camille, waiting beside his building in a slate gray coat and sunglasses that couldn't hide the exhaustion carved into her face. "Nate," she called out. He didn't stop walking. "I need 5 minutes. Please." He opened his car door. "I never meant to hurt you. I was scared. I thought you'd leave me if I told you about Derek. And then, the money, it all just happened." He turned slowly, 1 foot inside the car. "You had a choice, every step of the way. You chose the one with lies." She exhaled hard. "I miss you." "I think you miss who I was," he replied. "Not who I am now." "Please," she stepped forward. "I know I was wrong. But we were good. You were good to me." "And you weren't," he said, voice calm. Camille blinked, stunned by the simplicity of it. Then he added, "You made sure I left with nothing. But you forgot you left something behind." She looked confused. Nathan smiled faintly. "You left your digital footprint. You left evidence. You left me just enough to remind you that not all men stay broken." Camille's lips trembled. "You're not who I remember." "Good." He closed the door and drove off. In his rearview mirror, she didn't chase him. She just stood there, holding her coat like it could keep her warm from a storm she started herself. That night, Nathan hosted his friends. Real friends. People who had called and offered couches. Who stood by him when the news broke. He didn't tell them everything. Just enough to laugh again. Smile again. Live again. But his revenge wasn't about laughs. It was about truth. And he still had one more truth to expose. Nathan thought the worst was over. He thought stripping Camille of the wealth she tried to steal, exposing her lies, and burning her public image down to its foundation was enough. But the truth has layers. And he hadn't peeled them all yet. It was a Saturday morning when Eleanor, his attorney, called. "There's something you need to see," she said. Her voice, usually composed, carried the edge of alarm. Nathan met her at her office that afternoon. She slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were scanned copies of financial transfers, dated before Camille's mother's death, before the trust papers, even before the marriage. These were tucked away in one of the auxiliary accounts under Camille's name, Eleanor explained. Discovered during the audit. Look closely. Nathan flipped through the sheets. $30,000 wired to a private investigator. A contract. Surveillance notes. His eyes stopped cold at a date. 3 months before their engagement. "What is this?" he asked, already feeling it in his gut. "She hired someone to research your family. Your business. Your credit. Everything." Nathan stared blankly. "She didn't fall in love with you, Nathan. She calculated you." His chest went tight. He remembered their first date. Her nervous laugh. Her, accidental, run-in at the bookstore where he held architecture lectures. How she claimed it was fate. How she called him solid. Steady, trustworthy. It was never love. It was strategy. She had chosen him because he was stable. Because he made her look respectable to her family. Because he could help fund the start of her agency. And when she no longer needed the image. When she had the inheritance. She discarded him. Nathan gripped the edge of the table. "She used me as a stepping stone." Eleanor nodded. "And she didn't think you'd ever learn." He took the folder home. Didn't eat. Didn't sleep. He opened his laptop and accessed his own email archive. Camille had written an article years ago for a women's magazine. How to build a life of influence without inheritance. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so vile. Nathan took a deep breath. This wasn't just revenge anymore. This was redefinition. He crafted an email with the attached financial documents. The surveillance contract. The timeline. And sent it to 3 journalists he knew personally. Not tabloids. Real ones. The ones who vetted every fact, who spoke truth with care. Then he waited, and the story hit. Marketing maven built her brand on a lie. The husband she hired. The article didn't just expose Camille. It dismantled the illusion. Even her remaining clients pulled out. Her agency's website went offline. Derek Vaughn released a statement saying he had no knowledge of her unethical decisions. His firm settled the divorce quietly. Camille was alone. Truly. 1 week later, Nathan received a letter. Handwritten. Nate, you were right. I thought I could control every piece of my world. But I never expected you to stop loving me so silently. So powerfully. That silence crushed me. I don't know who I am anymore. I hope you find peace. Camille. He folded the letter and placed it inside a drawer he never opened again. Not out of sentiment, but closure. That weekend, Nathan drove out to the coast. He walked barefoot on Cannon Beach. Let the wind whip through his hair. Let the sea's roar drown out all memory of espresso machines and silent betrayals. He stood alone, but never hollow. For the first time in years, he felt whole. 6 months later, Nathan Wells stood in front of a freshly painted cottage nestled just outside Ashland, Oregon. It wasn't glamorous. It didn't have smart mirrors or voice-activated blinds. But it had light. It had space. It had quiet. And it was his. After everything. After the betrayal. The brutal eviction. The humiliation. The unraveling. He'd started again. And this time, he hadn't rebuilt what was lost. He built something better. He ran a one-man firm now. Trueform Architecture. Helping single parents, small businesses, and struggling families design beautiful, functional homes on a budget. He took only 3 clients a month. No more soul-crushing deadlines. No more chasing contracts. He spent his mornings making coffee without flinching at the sound of the machine. He spent his afternoons sketching near the lake. He spent his nights reading, walking, healing. The nightmares had faded. Mostly. Sometimes he still saw Camille's cold eyes, heard her say, "Sign it." Sometimes he remembered the way her brothers dragged him out like garbage. But then he remembered what came after. How he stayed calm. How he fought back with silence, facts, and patience. How he didn't let bitterness rot his bones. And how, in the end, he took everything she tried to keep and walked away with more. Not just the money, but his name, his dignity, his truth. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, he got a call from an unfamiliar number. He almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of him. It was Brandon, her brother. "Hey, Nathan. I just wanted to say." Long pause. "We didn't know everything. And what we did was unforgivable. I'm not calling for her. She doesn't even know I'm doing this." Nathan didn't speak. "I just thought you should know. We read the article. We saw what she did. She fooled us too. All those years, man. You deserve better." Nathan took a breath, then calmly said, "I did." Brandon didn't argue. Just said, "I hope you're okay." Nathan replied, "I am now." Then hung up. No hatred. No rage. Just clarity. Later that week, he walked into the local bookstore and bumped. Literally. Into a woman carrying a stack of gardening books. They spilled everywhere. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry," she said, kneeling. He helped her pick them up. Their hands touched briefly. Her name was Lena Moore, a horticulturist starting a community garden in the neighborhood. They talked and laughed and didn't mention exes or court cases or betrayal. Not once. 3 weeks later, she brought him a basil plant. "For your kitchen," she said with a shy smile. He didn't think about Camille when he placed it on the windowsill. He didn't think about what she'd lost, what he'd taken, what they'd buried. Because some ghosts don't need exorcising. They just need forgetting. And Nathan had finally moved on. He never chased revenge. He chased truth. And the truth set him free.